Welcome to Poets and Poetry and the Texoma Poetry Society. We are so pleased you've joined us today. Our chapter meets monthly on each first Saturday except July at the Sherman Public Library from 2 to 4 p.m. Whether you write, read, or just enjoy listening, friends of poetry are always welcome. The purpose of Poets and Poetry is to promote and encourage the writing of poetry and to kindle a finer appreciation of this creative language art with introductions to award-winning poets and their poetry. Such is our guest today. Ruth Savage, the 10th of 11 children, says she grew up poor in Childress, Texas, and found herself lost in the inexhaustible libraries available to her hungry mind. Her formal education ended with high school, and she was soon married to Tom and raising 4 children. They now make their home in Arlington. But she says she always found time to read, poetry being her favorite subject. Like most of us, Ruth began writing simple poems as a child and teenager, and like us, says she's sure most of them would now be known as doggerel. Ruth's professional career was spent giving book reviews throughout Texas. She loved and loves books and the audiences she entertained for 12 years. She resigned from the circuit to write poetry for the Arlington Arts Advocate, doing so for 7 years. Mrs. Savage served 2 terms as president of the Poets of Tarrant County and 1 year as contest chair for the Poetry Society of Texas. She founded and served as president of PST chapter New Millennium Poets for 4 years. She is a longtime sponsor of contests of the Poetry Society of Texas and judges many. She also has offered readings in many of that society's summer conferences, and I can assure you she also does a fantastic impersonation of Eleanor Roosevelt. There's a photo in the sign-in book if you haven't seen that. Take a look. It was made in Austin at the summer conference 2 years ago, and she's just delightful. Ruth's poetry has been published in numerous editions of Book of the Year published by the Poetry Society of Texas, as well as Galaxy of Verse Literary Foundation and other journals. Walton Publishing Company has published 2 CDs of her poetry. They are titled Savage Whispers and Texas Tough. Those CDs can also be enjoyed on your computers. Please welcome Ruth Savage.
Thank you. Well, it is indeed a pleasure to be here with you. I've heard all about what's going on here and through other poets, and they've always encouraged me to come up here and sit in with you for some readings. I know that I'll hear poetry here with you today that I have not heard, and I hope that some of my poetry maybe you have read some of it in the books that Leona spoke of and other places. So if everyone is ready, I'll begin with my portion of the program with a poem that I read in recognition of all the inhabitants of Mother Earth who are struggling through hunger, poverty, and disease in these dreadful times across Mother Earth. This is what I would call a prayer poem. Bread. Give us this day our daily bread, or at least an oven to bake our own, and wheat to grind into flour, and a lump of lard or shortening, a pinch of salt. And don't forget the yeast to make it rise as our mouths water and empty stomachs growl. Oh Lord, is this too much to ask? And if it is not asking too much, a little firewood and a good cast iron pan. The morning sky is bleeding grief for your children, wandering in bombed out rubble, lined up in refugee camps, peering through barbed wire at cataclysmic devastation of our homelands, and wondering, where is God? Where is Allah? Where is our daily bread? I strike straight at the heart of my subjects. I tell it to the best of my ability the way it is. And they're not all tragedies, but we are in the midst of much tragedy in this world today. So what with all that? Really, we all should not be having any trouble to put your thoughts and feelings into words. There's one here, if I have it in the right place. I'll read this one to you. It was, most of these I'm reading to you today have won a first place. In fact, everything in this book has won a first place, and they've been published different places. This one, Heroes, Sung and Unsung. The world has its heroes, some trained for greatness, decorated with ribbons and medals, some spotlighted on television, newspapers, and history books. Some are bigger than life. Others may live next door or in your house, never thinking themselves to be heroic, but they were there in that place when courageous action was needed. That's how it happens. In that spontaneous moment, the hero is revealed, unknown until the need arises. There is no forethought, no planned rehearsals. It's either there or it isn't. There is a timer within each of us, and when each hour tolls, a hero never has to ask, should I? He or she is already in action, like angels who always know what to do. Heroes take orders from one who speaks silently, instantaneously to the heart. Someday, when you least expect it, you may get the command, and it's done, and you are someone's hero.
I think that's very appropriate at the death of Gerald Ford.
Oh, yes.
I think
Yes.
it's very appropriate.
Yes. And you know, we are just inundated today with topics. We should all be writing, burning that midnight oil in the silence when the football games are all gone and the basketball players have gone home and it's all is quiet and still. I don't know why I'm preaching to you, you lovely poets, because I know you're as good as I am, and that's another thing we can all learn from one another and still keep our own identity. The last thing we want to do is infringe upon anybody else's work, but there's so many good ways, different ways to write a poem. I'm going to read this one now. Psalm of Freedom. Let freedom ring. Let it echo from battlefields where brave men died. Let it thunder from halls where independence was born. Let it rumble over hills and meadows and roar on ocean waves. Let it peal from lofty towers and chime from country churches. Let it howl in the restless wind and sing in a summer breeze. Let it blare from brass horns of a high school band and speak silently from a proud flag passing on parade, her bright colors rippling in mirrored monuments. Let it throb to the beat of bass drums and human hearts. Let it light the sky in the splendor of fireworks and reflect that splendor in children's eyes. Let it whisper encouragement to those enslaved by tyranny. Let its message be broadcast to all in bondage and cherished by all who embrace liberty. Let freedom ring, link arms and circle the planet, wherever and whenever people pursue liberty and happiness. Let freedom ring. Wouldn't that be a great world? And you know, we may not be able to cover the world, but we can do a lot on our own block, among our own neighbors, and those that we see throughout our life. That was read at the Dialogue Among Civilizations at the University of Texas at Arlington, March 31st, 01. Now here's a, did I read housewarming? No. Let's see. What kind of poetry do you like? Do you like light-hearted poetry, searching poetry, something that leaves a question in your mind? Naomi, am I preaching to your choir?
Just give us some of all of it.
Let's see. Did I read housewarming? I want to read housewarming.
Housewarming.
If you haven't heard housewarming, we're going to warm this house. Right here, this house. Housewarming. Give me a quaint old house with Doric columns and a towering cupola, a house that feels familiar with the marks and patina of experience, a house on a hill on the outskirts of town, with a white picket fence and roses. Give me a house that will speak to me in creaks and groans of those once held in its wooden arms and rocked in its oaken cradle. Give me a house with ceilings high, tall windows opening to the sky, a stairway spiraling to attic rooms where the only sound is the whispering muse and the scratch of my pen on the page. Fill my house with books and art and a leather chair by the fire. Give me a room with a sunny view and space for paints and easels. Give me a house rich in history that I may write its story. Let me paint the smile of its wraparound porch and record the song of its swing. I'll set out white wicker, hang frilly ferns, and some balmy evening, the moon smiling down, I'll dress in grandmother's vintage white linen, pin my hair in a bun, a brooch at my throat, and with a nostalgic wave of my hanky, invite all my lost loves to tea. Thank you. This is a true poem. Did I read Driving Blind? Have you ever driven blind? Okay, this is a true poem. Driving blind in midday time. I drive along this highway going west back to my roots, already smelling dust tinged with oil, tasting grit, being swept up by dirt devils. Within an hour, the little devils have merged into a Satan of a sandstorm. Fence posts decorated with coyote pelts, brag of some hunter's prowess. Telephone poles race by like crucifixes, warning me this is not God's country. The 4 p.m. sky begins to darken and promises to become a full-blown Sahara. Soon I'm on the cold shoulder of 287 with 3 kids in the car and a herd of cattle lined up along the barbed wire fence. Rumps to the wind, lowing in protest. Cars made for cleaner climes are no match for such determined onslaught. The slanted sting of sand will find its way inside. We wish for handkerchiefs to cover our mouths and noses like old times. Our eyebrows and eyelashes are thick with sand, our eyes gritty. Again, I am becoming my hometown. I'm in it and it's in me. Whatever made me think I could leave, I was marked from my conception, a child conceived among the tumbleweeds, where the sand never sets, the wind never forgets, and the highway calls my name. Let's see. This is a little poem I wrote. It's in the PST books. Through a glass clearly. In the Bible, it's through a glass darkly. This is not exactly a take on that, but it's another phraseology. Through a glass clearly. I love my room of tempered glass, where many a sunny day I pass, sheltered while my soul may fly outside where beauty draws my eye. There flowers lift their saucy heads in carefully tended, pampered beds, ablaze with multicolor bright as neon on a Vegas night. Fat squirrels play tag in my trees, flowering vines host drunken bees. Hummingbirds are known to chuckle among my sweet wild honeysuckle. A smorgasbord of choice delight awaits my hungry friends in flight. At well-stocked feeders everywhere and sculptured fountains bubbling there. I love my room in dead of winter, when it becomes my shrine, my center of quiet reflection and sweet repose, while watching whirling, drifting snows. The flash of diamond-frosted trees can almost bring me to my knees, in awe of nature's changing story, portrayed in all its seasonal glory. In scenes that almost make me cry when the master painter passes by. This is a poem. I hope it brings back some memories to you from quite a while ago. But it was run through again in November, and you may remember the people I'm writing about here, if you had your TV on in November. I mean computer. No television. No fanfare. The ground grew warm where he had lain since that bleak day in November. Her hand reached across to touch his own in a caress he would remember. He felt her presence, her slender form, dark hair framing her face. He reached across the lonely years to welcome her into her place. He caught the scent of familiar perfume. In the dark, he could see her smile as she softly breathed a whisper, "I've missed you a long, long while." They had much to say, to talk about, and eternity to do it. She had wanted to say on that fateful day, "I love you." He said, "I knew it." He asked her to tell first of the children. Are they doing well in life? Then let him tell how he loved her so, why he chose her to be his wife. Back and forth shared conversation, with no interruptions to vex and annoy. Heartache and sorrow were washed away by forgiveness, acceptance, and joy. And so it goes. Jack, did I ever tell you? And no, Jackie, I would never have guessed, as they titter and talk and reminisce beneath the flame of eternal rest. And don't we hope it's something like that when we go? I want to be buried right there by that guy, and I'm sure I'll have a lot to tell him if he goes first. I kind of like this poem. It was one of the first poems I won a first place on. And part of it is in the writing. I spell the title. It's the Friendly Pharmacist. Friendly Pharmacist. The Friendly Pharmacist, and friendly is spelled P-H-R-I-E-N-D-L-Y. To coincide with pharmacist, which is also starts with a P-H. I love it when you play with your poetry. If you do it creatively, because, you know, shoot, it's wonderful to read books and they're all so distinct and clear, but I love something that has a twist. Did I read this a while ago? Okay. The Friendly Pharmacist. Bring back the good old days when a Saturday night fever didn't necessarily mean a big bucks trip to the cold, uncaring draft of a hospital emergency room, when a case of poison ivy or an upset stomach didn't take all day or call for a specialist and another day at a laboratory being stuck and x-rayed, then sent home with a cold caught from other sufferers in a hot, stuffy waiting room. Bring back the friendly neighborhood pharmacist who knew you, knew your kids, cared, and let you charge it. Bring back that pharmaceutical doctor who knew our aches and pains and rashes and was available, not 20 miles away over a gridlocked road, freeway, in a huge medical center, but around the corner in your favorite drugstore with the soda fountain up front. Give me my old friend in the white lab jacket with buttons down the side, who could crush, mix, and stir a potion for the smallest to the largest of the family, who affectionately eased a child's pain with a bright red lollipop, and always knew when to medicate, when to call the doctor, and when to pray. Do y'all remember old times like that? I write about old times. There's so much of them. There's so many of them. Okay, this won a first place in Encore, the National Federation of State Poetry Societies. Mountain Music Man. All day he sat on the porch and rocked, the chair creaking out a duet with the weathered floorboards. He sang, too, old mountain songs that told a story, like My Darling Clementine and Little Mother of the Hills. Then he'd spit tobacco over the porch rail, clear his throat, pull out his French harp and start to blow. He'd take off slow on that old Wabash cannonball coming round the mountain. We could hear the whistle, smell the smoke, hear the clickety-clack of the wheels, the chug of black and dusty, and the hiss of steam. Grandpa squeezed the notes so low and mournful, it pert near broke my heart. I knew sad before I ever heard the words. When he played Born to Lose, our old black dog, Spider, set up a forlorn howl that sent shivers up my spine. Sometimes a lonesome whippoorwill added a blue note, or the hard luck cry of a coyote wavered on the air. If Grandpa had a snort of moonshine, he might play happy, like Turkey in the Straw or Old Dan Tucker. He'd get juiced up and tap his foot or jig till we feared that porch would give way. That old mama cat would scurry out with kittens still hanging on her teats. When I was 8, he bought me a French harp, and I accompanied him dissonantly. Years later, Grandma buried him with his moonshine in one hand, his French harp in the other. When they lowered Grandpa into the earth, my harmonica rattled St. Peter's gates with the sound of saints marching in. And through my tears, I saw Grandpa turn and wave as he disappeared into a cloud, a sob caught in the notes of my song. And how long am I supposed to read?
You're doing fine.
Okay, let's go to something else. Let's see. Oh, that's not it. Okay. Let's try Borderlands. Have you seen this, Naomi? I mean, Leona. This is published down around Austin and.
Oh, I've seen the book, not that particular book.
Well, I have a poem in here I'll read for you, if I can find it. Maybe that's what this is for. Here it is. Chicago, and you know, this could just as easily be Lubbock. And in my New Texas book, I did said it in Lubbock. But it had previously been published in Borderlands as Chicago. Trees bend their trembling arms, waving goodbye to summer dress. Brittle leaves swirl like dervishes in the wind. Employees scurrying along the boulevard to work, bending windward, arms locked around briefcases and folios. A portly gentleman huffs and puffs, chasing a derby pirouetting like tall chief. Lunching ladies with tame tresses are recoiffed by the teasing wind. Children on the playground break into tears as balloons and kites are snatched, decorating the sky with pilfered playthings. Umbrellas pop up like Mary Poppins, flap as though revving up to fly. Even the street signs tremble as the lion roars. Let's get on to something now. This is a poem here. I didn't read Juxtaposition, did I? Okay, this is published in the Austin Rider. It's hard to get in this. It's a thin little thing, but it's an honor to get a poem in there because they are picky. Juxtaposition. Rain washes away the sin from city sidewalks, flushes it down gutters, and sings songs of redemption for vagabonds and streetwalkers who made it through another night. The sun rises on the just and the unjust and makes no accusations. Pages fall like leaves from calendars. Clocks forget the time. Lost hours, months, years fly into infinity, sweeping their tracks into vapor trails. Stars grow tired, retreat into black holes, and blow out the light. Still, the just watch the heavens and anticipate their redemption, while the unjust just hope for one more night of purgatorial paradise on the cold, indifferent streets. What does that make you think or feel?
Redeemed.
Well, actually, no, that's the let's see, where did he get that? It makes you feel redeemed?
Makes me personally feel redeemed.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
You look much broader, but you ask
Yes,
me, so
I did, and I appreciate your answering. That is absolutely the right answer.
Seems like a contrast between the light and the dark.
Definitely, yes. Yes. And I think poetry can be used to delineate the difference. And let's see what this is. Oh, I don't know. Let's see what else I have. This poem is a poem that I wrote some time ago, several years. I guess it's been about 4 or 5 years since I wrote Lone Star Requiescat. And my dear friend Jim Johnson, you know him, runs around with Peggy Lynch. He heard this poem, and he asked permission to read it to his audiences. And of course, that's quite an honor because he sees lots more audiences. He's all over Texas and beyond. So he's been reading this all over, and I thought I would come up here, and you may have already heard it. But this is it. Lone Star Requiescat. When I die, bury me down around the Pedernales. I read this a while ago, didn't I? I can't keep them separate. When I die, bury me down around the Pedernales, close enough to feel the cool lick of her effervescent waters on my feet, where I can hear the song of the rapids playing touch and go with rocks polished to perfection. Let me lie underneath soil rich in remains of heroes and outlaws, cowboys and city slickers, explorers and settlers from near and distant lands. Let me taste the mix that made Texas great. Plant me deep underneath the willows, let them brush my grave tenderly and tickle me with their tendrils. Drink of me and carry my spirit to the wind. Cover me with blue bonnets and match them with a wide Texas sky. Face me toward the east for the early performance of a show-off Texas sunrise. Decorate my sky with red-winged blackbirds and fill my trees with mockingbirds, so song can fill my ears with familiar sound. Let squirrels cavort above me, horned toads and lizards sun themselves on my headstone. White-tailed deer graze at my feet. Pluck Indian paintbrush to paint my story in a Texas sunset. And when I am properly ready, may a Texas tornado suction my dust into the atmosphere, my atoms into the heavens, there to twinkle in a star-spangled Texas sky. Well, we can all dream. And part of that dust absolutely could filter up, you know. It's always same old earth that God put here in the first place is still here. And we'll all be there someday, and may we go with a good record. Oh, a requisite? A requisite is that's a word meaning a solemn ceremony for someone who has died. And that is why he reads it every June. I'm talking about Jim. He comes to the Dallas meeting and he reads this poem in honor of the poets across Texas that have passed away. And you know, I hope we all do see one another someday in some form. Y'all tell me when you get tired. I'd like to hear some of your poetry.
We'll have time later. You've got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'm going to read this one then. The face on the wall. I saw my grandmother in the face painted there on the canyon wall, her dark eyes piercing the strata, staring across centuries, holding me steadfast in a gaze of recognition. She and I linked in the chain of sojourners, occupying the same space on this spinning garden of paradise and purgatory. Her weathered face matching the crags of the mountain, pain for pain, pleasure for pleasure, lesson for lesson. Time-worn hands reaching out to all who call her mother, Mother Earth, Mother Water, Mother Sky, Mother Mine. She is one and all. Her blood is in my veins, golden droplets of raw courage wrung from the Aztec sun, who still rules the sky, tans my skin, streaks my hair, lines my face, sculpting me in her own image. This was a facial, seeming like a face, in the Amarilla Canyon wall. Have y'all ever gone up to Amarilla, to the big canyon? Yes, Aladora. And I, looking up there, saw a formation that made me think of my mother. Her nose, you know. And so I just wrote this poem. You know, you ought to dig out the things that touch you in life. That's the things that make good poems.
My wife reads more things in clouds than she does in the newspaper.
I'd like to meet your wife. She's a dreamer like me. Song of the Road, did I read that? Song of the Road? I don't think so. Song of the Road. Leona, I thought about you when I wrote this poem. And I told you that a while ago, didn't I? Because she was on the road. Leona was she was a trucker mama. I'd love to ride one of those trucks, but I couldn't. I'd kill everybody on the road, I'm sure. Song of the Road. A road can be a lonely place when you leave someone behind. It can be rough and stony and all uphill when loss rides heavy on your mind. A road may wind and twist and turn till you know there's a beast inside with a woman's mind and a woman's will, so you brace for a long, hard ride. A road can sing you the saddest songs and strum them on your heartstrings till you know the singer is a woman who wears horns and angel wings. And she weeps as the highway cries and the windshield is wet with tears, and her wild, sweet kiss and soft, warm touch fly over the miles and the years. And the highway hums and the white line turns and the way lays straight and clear, as two hearts synchronize, the signal beat and hometown lights appear. You may hit the road without purpose or plan, leave without a backward glance, but the siren song that brings you home is a woman and a second chance. Don't forget that, men.
One more, Ruth.
Okay. Okay, another serious one. I didn't get around to very many funny ones, but I'll go with this one, Dogface. Johnny volunteered for the Army when he turned 17. Vietnam was far away and unimaginable. But before you could say GI haircut, he was on his way to hell. A smooth-faced boy, he fought in the swamps, jungles, and trenches, dodged mortar, hand grenades, landmines, and bombs. The screams of the wounded and dying foretold what lay ahead. One small step for a hero, step this way, a Purple Heart, that way, your name in granite. Starving teenage camp followers searched out G.I. Joe, trading sex, forgetfulness, peace, and a white powder for a few Yankee coins, GI rations, medicine for Mama Son. The white powder saved his sanity, got him through the Vietnam War, followed him home to the land of the free, chained to a habit that ate him minute by minute, killed him in little pieces, like a hand grenade exploding in slow motion. This was my nephew.